I'm Dr. Cindy Schaff-Toll. I have a practice here in Canton, Michigan. A couple things that are kind of interesting about my background as a chiropractor is we have 20 chiropractors in our family. There's 3 generations of us. And it all started a long time ago. My dad, Ray Elwert, was working for the people before they started Amway, and he was a traveling salesman. And my father would fall asleep all the time. He had a condition called narcolepsy. And narcolepsy means, for him, he could be standing up here next to this beautiful fireplace and he would fall asleep, and he had absolutely no control over it. And the problem was, as he was a traveling salesman for one of the Van Andels trying to sell microwave ovens back in the day, in the 1950s, he would fall asleep. And of course that wasn't good because you'd get in car accidents. Finally, my dad had had so much. He went to the University of Michigan and decided that he was going to see what they could do for his narcolepsy. And so he went there and they did all sorts of tests on him. And my father was a decorated World War II veteran. He had Purple Heart and many other medals. And he had had all sorts of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And then the narcolepsy started to get worse and worse over time. And he'd lost job after job after job. What he decided to do at that point, he had to go home. He was dejected and really upset because here he had us at 3 kids. He had just built a house. I don't even know how he was able to pull this all together and build a house, but he did. And he even finished off cupboards. He was a great finish carpenter, and he could do anything. But the thing he couldn't do was control this sleeping problem. So at that point he said, I'm going to try that chiropractor, or whoever my sister-in-law said down the street. I'm going to try her because there's nothing else I can do. So he did, and he went to go see her. Her name is Carolyn Ream, and she had a practice in the 2nd story in Wayne, Michigan. And so he walked up these creaky old stairs up, and they had very crude benches and things at the time. But she adjusted him, and my father didn't have narcolepsy anymore.
My whole life was surrounded by chiropractors. Both my parents are chiropractors, both my grandfathers are chiropractors. As a kid, I wanted to be a chiropractor. That's all I ever really wanted to do until I got into be about middle school, and I didn't like school anymore, so I didn't want to go to any more school than a bachelor's degree or something, so I thought I wouldn't go be a chiropractor. They never actually really pushed me into being a chiropractor. I really had full choice in doing that. They never pressured me or anything like that, but they talked to me about it. I mean, again, it's part of our life. It wasn't like you go to work and you come home and you just go back to work the next day. I mean, for us, chiropractic was our entire lifestyle, so I'd lived it my entire life and I didn't know anything else.
He was Mr. Energy, Mr. Vibrant Health, everything was wonderful. And so he said, what about if, could this help my young daughter, which was me, and I was born and I had convulsions with fevers and I had a crossed eye, converging strabismus. My one eye is still a little weak, but I had a really rough birth. And my eye was crossed into my head. My dad asked this chiropractor, could she help him? And certainly she did. She adjusted me, and so I never had to have glasses for it, and the convulsions were gone. And then he asked about my mother, and she adjusted her, and my mother didn't have headaches anymore. Not only that, her vision improved so much that she threw her glasses away. So he asked Dr. Ream if indeed he could make a living at becoming a chiropractor, and she said, yes, why certainly, you could make a living at it. And so my father decided that he was going to go off to chiropractic college, and he was in his 30s, and this is the 1950s. My brother was 10, my sister was 5, and I was 9 months old when we moved to Davenport, Iowa for my dad to become a chiropractor. So my mother ended up having a boarding house, and she supported us by running this boarding house, cooking and cleaning, and my father also did tool and die work at night. And they put themselves through Palmer Chiropractic College. And my dad, before he left, asked his younger brother, Walter, who had just come out of the Korean War, if he was doing anything with the rest of his life. And my uncle said no, and my dad said, well, why don't you become a chiropractor? So that's how my uncle became a chiropractor. In fact, so now he's been in practice for over 50 years, and his daughter Nancy and his son Brian are all chiropractors. That was the beginning of my father deciding to spread the word to everybody, the really excitement about the good news about chiropractic, that you don't have to live sick and miserable. And so we know of at least 50 chiropractors that came directly from my father referring them to become chiropractors.
I decided to become a chiropractor because I couldn't see myself doing anything else. I grew up living a completely different way of life than everybody else. We didn't get medicine for the most part, unless it was, pretty severe. For the most part, chiropractic tries to go with alternative ways, and I was very healthy. I was very rarely ever sick, never hospitalized, never needed any antibiotics my entire life growing up. And I could see the difference between me and my friends who were sick and had all kinds of issues going on. And I couldn't see anything else I could do. I couldn't see myself doing anything else because of that total different lifestyle. Not being able to provide that for my family was something that I couldn't even imagine what life would be like, not being able to adjust my daughter when she was sick or when she was, she had hurt herself.
So a lot of you may have heard of colic in the past, and you may not know what colic is, but they've renamed it. It's called GER now, gastroesophageal reflux. But they really don't know what causes it, but they do give babies all sorts of medications that are approved for it. That's one of my passions for taking care of babies now, because there's no reason for them to have colic. Now we have 3 generations of chiropractors in our family, and my one nephew decided that he would add up all the hours of chiropractors in our family, all the years rather, that the chiropractors have practiced in our family, and he said it was 540 years.
The best thing about being a doctor of chiropractic is seeing people's lives changed every day. I have people come in, crawling in. They come in and they can hardly open their eyes because they have such a bad headache, or they've been struggling with some kind of problem for such a long time, and by the time they come to us, most of the time it's their last resort. They've done everything else. I always hear, I've tried everything, and you're my last chance. And we get to see people's lives changed every day. That's the best part. The majority of my patients that I see stay for wellness. They see the difference. They see that they feel better. They see that they're able to breathe better, that they sleep better, have more energy. I just had a patient the other day that his wife decided she wanted to come in because she said to him, "You're not such a jerk since you've been coming in to see him." So we're making changes in people's mood. And so the majority of my patients, they see that and they like it, and so they stay and they do wellness with me. They're not seeing me for any kind of pain. They're just seeing me to prevent and to improve their health.
When my dad was in chiropractic college, we had all these students around, and we all were together, and all the students decided the funny thing was to teach a baby, which was me, to say chiropractic for my first word. So that indeed was my very first word, chiropractic. And so I never thought of becoming anything else in my whole life besides a chiropractor. And of course, being a female wasn't a surprise at all, because our very first one was a chiropractor. Very first chiropractor was a female. Several years ago, I decided that we should document all this history, and so Palmer Historical Society has put all this in their papers. We have all this annotated, and we're now family number 7 in the annals of it. So we're excited to see what happens in the future, see who's going to be our first 4th generation. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to tell about Elwertowski Shaft legacy in chiropractic. Thanks.